All right, so you ready to dive into something that sounds like it's straight out of a spy thriller? We're talking about the U.S. government and they're hoarding Bitcoin.
Yeah, and what's crazy is this isn't like some conspiracy theory floating around the internet.
Right.
This is like straight from the White House, an official executive order dated March 6, 2025.
Exactly. We're not talking rumors here. This is official U.S. policy, so we're going deep on this executive order. We want to figure out what exactly are they doing, and more importantly, why is Bitcoin suddenly getting this level of attention from the government?
Well, the order itself is pretty long, but the core idea is fascinating. It actually labels Bitcoin as digital gold.
Okay, I mean, we've all heard that comparison before, but to see it in a document from the White House, it hits different.
Right.
You know, what's the thinking there?
Well, the order highlights a couple of key things. Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, and the network itself is incredibly secure. Those two factors together make it very attractive as a store of value, much like gold has been historically.
So the government's basically saying they see Bitcoin as a long-term asset, something that holds its value over time.
Exactly.
But it goes further than that, right? They're not just talking about Bitcoin.
Right. The order actually establishes a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Think of it like Fort Knox, but for digital gold.
Whoa, a Bitcoin Fort Knox. That's a serious commitment. So where are they even getting all this Bitcoin? Are they using our tax dollars to buy it on the open market?
Actually, no. And this is where things get really interesting. They're using assets seized from criminal activities, money laundering, drug trafficking, all that.
Oh, wow.
So basically, they're taking the proceeds of crime and turning it into a strategic asset for the country.
Okay, that is really smart. So they're building up this reserve without actually spending taxpayer money. It's like a double win. But hold on, does that mean that if they catch more criminals, the Bitcoin reserve gets bigger?
That's exactly what it means. Every time there's a seizure of Bitcoin from illicit activities, it goes straight into this reserve.
Wow, okay, so we've got this strategic Bitcoin reserve. What else is in this order?
Well, there's another piece to this. The order also creates something called the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. Think of it as a holding area for any other digital assets the government seizes.
So like a miscellaneous crypto bucket.
Exactly. But there's a key distinction here, that the government won't actively buy more of these other digital assets. It's only what they get through those criminal proceedings.
Okay, so Bitcoin gets its own special reserve, and they're actively looking to get more other digital assets. Not so much why the difference.
Well, it suggests they view Bitcoin differently. They see it as a strategic asset worthy of its own dedicated reserve and active acquisition efforts. Other digital assets, they're treating them more like just confiscated goods.
Interesting. So what happens to all this Bitcoin in the reserve? Are they going to trade it?
Nope. The order specifically says the Bitcoin in the strategic reserve will not be sold. It's a long-term hold, just like those gold reserves.
Huh. They're really going all in on this. But if they want to get more Bitcoin and they can't spend taxpayer dollars, how are they going to do it?
That's the big question. The order instructs the Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce to figure that out. But with one big catch, it has to be budget neutral.
Okay, so no going on a Bitcoin shopping spree with government funds. What could that even look like?
Well, that's where things get really intriguing. Could we see partnerships with private companies? Some creative accounting maneuvers, maybe even government-run mining operations.
Wait, the government running Bitcoin mines? That's a wild thought.
It sounds crazy, but it's not impossible. This order makes it clear the government is serious about accumulating Bitcoin, and they're willing to explore some unconventional approaches to do it.
Okay, so they're acquiring Bitcoin through seizures and exploring other options to get more. Anything else in this order that jumps out?
One more thing. The order says that every government agency has to report its digital asset holdings within 30 days.
Wow. So it's like they're taking inventory of all the crypto tucked away in various government departments. Who knows what they'll find?
Exactly. This reporting requirement could reveal a surprising amount of digital assets already held by the government. Maybe acquired through seizures, fines, even investments.
So it's almost like we're lifting the curtain on a whole new world of government activity in the crypto space. This is getting more interesting by the minute.
It is, and it raises a lot of questions. We're only just beginning to understand the implications of this executive order.
Okay, let's take a moment to process all of this. We've covered a lot of ground, but this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Welcome back to our deep dive into this executive order on Bitcoin.
So we've established that the U.S. government is treating Bitcoin as a strategic asset. They're building a reserve and they're actively looking to get more.
Yeah.
But this goes beyond just like stockpiling Bitcoin, right? this has the potential to like reshape the entire financial landscape.
It does. It really does.
Okay, so let's unpack that. How exactly could this move impact the financial system as we know it?
Well, for starters, think about the signal it sends to the rest of the world, the U.S. A global financial leader is saying, hey, Bitcoin is important.
Right.
This could lead to other countries following suit, establishing their own strategic Bitcoin reserves.
So instead of a gold rush, we could see a global Bitcoin race nations scrambling to amass as much Bitcoin as possible.
Yeah, it's a very real possibility. And as demand increases, so does the price. This could have huge implications for investors, businesses, even everyday people who are just starting to explore crypto.
So you're saying the U.S. government is, in a way, legitimizing Bitcoin as like a real asset.
Yeah, it's a big step in that direction by acknowledging Bitcoin as a strategic asset. They're making it more acceptable to a lot of people who are hesitant before. This could lead to more businesses accepting Bitcoin, more financial institutions offering crypto services, more individuals feeling comfortable investing in digital assets.
Right, but we can't forget about the potential, like, downsides, right? The challenges and risks. This is new territory, and there are going to be some bumps along the way.
Absolutely. One of the biggest concerns is regulatory uncertainty. The executive order asks the Secretary of the Treasury to look into the legal and investment implications of these new reserves, but it doesn't really give specific guidelines or regulations.
So are we just in a wait-and-see mode for now?
Yeah, pretty much how the U.S. government chooses to regulate Bitcoin and other digital assets is going to have a massive impact on their future. Too much regulation could stifle innovation, but too little could lead to instability and potential misuse.
Tightrope walk. And what about security? We know that the Bitcoin network itself is very secure, but what about these government-controlled reserves? Are they going to be, like, vulnerable to hacking?
That's a good question, and the order doesn't go into detail about security measures for these reserves, but given how much these assets are worth, the government will have to take cybersecurity very seriously.
And then there's the potential for market manipulation, right? With the U.S. government holding so much Bitcoin, could they influence the market in a way that benefits them?
That's a worry that needs to be addressed very transparently. The government needs to be careful to avoid anything that looks like market manipulation or that could undermine confidence in the system.
Okay, it seems like this executive order has opened up like a Pandora's box of possibilities, good and bad.
Yeah, it really has. It's a fascinating development with consequences that are hard to predict. We're seeing a fundamental shift in the financial world, and we're only just beginning to see how it will all play out.
This whole executive order is just full of intriguing details, and one that really stood out to me was this requirement for all government agencies to report their digital asset holdings.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What could this reveal about the government's current involvement in the crypto space?
This reporting requirement is really important for transparency. It could uncover a surprising amount of digital assets that the government's already holding, maybe from seizures, fines, even investments. This data could give us a lot of insights into how much the government's already involved in cryptocurrencies, which has been pretty hidden until now.
Imagine the headlines. Government hoarding millions in Bitcoin. This could spark a whole public debate about the government's role in crypto and raise questions about, accountability and potential conflicts of interest.
For sure, this reporting requirement could lead to more public awareness and scrutiny of what the government's doing in the crypto world. It could also make people start talking about the need for clearer guidelines and regulations to make sure these assets are managed responsibly.
It's like we're shining a light into this previously dark corner of the financial system. Who knows what we'll find?
The results of this reporting requirement could be really eye-opening, and they might even challenge some of our assumptions about what the government's role is in this evolving digital asset landscape.
It's clear that this executive order has thrown a wrench into the traditional financial system. We're seeing the old world of finance and the new world of crypto kind of collide right in front of us.
Yeah, it's like a collision of two worlds, and it'll definitely lead to both challenges and opportunities. But one thing's for sure, the financial landscape is changing in a big way, and the U.S. government is now a major player in this whole evolution.
Yeah, we've covered a lot today, but there's still so much more to uncover. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking about this executive order on Bitcoin, and honestly, it's starting to feel less like, government policy and more like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It's definitely a big deal, and it has implications way beyond the U.S. Other countries are definitely paying attention, trying to figure out what their own strategy should be in this new landscape.
You think this could trigger some kind of global Bitcoin arms race? Nations scrambling to hoard Bitcoin like it's the new nuclear weapon?
I mean, the analogy isn't that far off.
Yeah.
Control over strategic assets has always been a big part of global power. And in a world where digital assets are becoming more and more important, Bitcoin could become like a really crucial piece on the geopolitical chessboard.
So, okay, let's play this out. What happens if a bunch of countries start hoarding Bitcoin? What does that mean for like the average person?
That's the million-dollar question, or I guess the million Bitcoin question. If governments really start adopting Bitcoin as a reserve asset, it could fundamentally change how we think about money and value.
Yeah, it's like we're watching the birth of a new global financial order, one where digital currencies are at the center of it all.
Exactly. And like with any big change, there are going to be winners and losers. The people who understand and embrace this new reality, they could benefit a lot.
But what about the people who are late to the party? Or those who just don't have the resources to invest in Bitcoin? Could they get left behind in this new digital economy?
That's a real concern, and we need to make sure this transition to a more digital world is inclusive. It has to benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah, we don't want to create a situation where like your access to financial resources depends on whether you own Bitcoin or how good you are with technology.
Exactly. That's where governments and policymakers have a really important role to play. They need to create regulations that encourage innovation while protecting consumers and ensuring that everyone has a fair chance.
It's a tough balance to strike, and it'll have ripple effects across the entire world. So, for our listeners out there, what does all this mean for you?
That's the question we want you to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. If the U.S. government is taking Bitcoin this seriously, treating it like a strategic asset just like gold, what does that tell you about the future of digital assets?
Is this the beginning of mainstream adoption? Are Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies becoming an essential part of our lives, or is this just like a temporary thing, a little experiment that will eventually fade away?
We don't have all the answers, but hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about. The world of finance is changing, and it's up to each of us to stay informed and figure out how to adapt.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep asking questions. The future of finance is being shaped right now, and we all have a part to play in it.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.